Oh my god, okay, I don't even know where to start. I was originally going to not look at the long list for the International Book of 2022 until I hit record and then react to it on camera, but I couldn't do that. I've seen it, I've looked at it, I've tweeted about it, and I am thrilled. If anyone watched my reaction video to the long list for 2021 last year, you'll know that I was pretty upset that there were so many books on that list that I hadn't heard of, but in the end that turned out to be a pretty good thing because I found some really great books that I got to then talk about, fall in love, the biggest of which was probably The Employees by Olga Raven, translated by Martin Aitken, an incredible piece of Danish science fiction. But this long list, I have read most of them, I love so many of them, and there are a few that have been on my radar for a while and now I feel real pressure to get to. So let's run through them because I am so happy for these authors, translators and publishers. You've got a lot of great indie publishers, you've got translators that I have loved and supported for so long, and you've got one author in particular that deserves all the love and success in the world. This is a wonderful long list. I am so grateful to the judges for the International Booker this year for having such great taste. Which is why I'm going to start at the top, my most exciting and wonderful and I love Cursed Bunny. Cursed Bunny is a wonderful collection of Korean short stories written by Bora Chung and translated by Anton He, my dear, dear friend Anton, and this is published by Honford Star, also dear friends of mine, and I have so much personal investment in Honford Star, in the success of Anton as a translator, and in this book. Cursed Bunny is an exquisite collection of short stories. I am a huge fan of short story collections, and the fact that this made the list is amazing. An indie publisher, a wonderful translator. Anton has made this list twice. As a translator, he's never made this list before, this is his first time, and he's made it twice with two different books, and this is one of them. I love Cursed Bunny, and what I think is so cool and interesting about choosing Cursed Bunny is that this is genre fiction. It's very literary, it's very smart, but these stories are horror. A lot of them are very gross, disgusting, nasty body horror. Some of them are not horror, they're fantastical or sci-fi inspired, but it's all genre fiction. And literary prizes are so often focused on very clearly grounded literary fiction, and this is not that. This is a diverse collection of genre stories from one of the most incredible and imaginative minds I've ever read, and it made the list. And it's beautiful, and I could talk in circles. I'm so happy that Cursed Bunny made this list. It is probably my favorite to win, honestly. I don't know if it will. It feels like a kind of underdog to win, but maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But it's on the long list, and I am so happy about that. Well done, Taylor. Well done, Anthony. Well done, Anton. And well done, Bora Chung. I'm so happy. This was one of my favorite books of 2021. I have talked about this a lot. Miyako Kawakami is my favorite Japanese author, and so of course I was thrilled to see this on there. I guess I'm not too surprised to see it on there. I think if a Japanese novel was going to make the long list, it would probably be Heaven, because Miyako Kawakami is just making waves. She's shaking up the literary world by being a passionate, smart, powerful feminist writer. And Heaven is wonderful. It's difficult. It's not a nice book. A lot of people get angry at it because it is full of so much cruelty. It's a book about bullying. It's a book about a boy and a girl being bullied at school in the 90s relentlessly with passion and pain. The amount of horribleness in this book makes it very difficult to read. I related to it, and I think it's incredibly well written, and I think it's very, very thought-provoking when it comes to the philosophy of bullying and the way that we react to it, etc. Very smart book, and I'm thrilled to see it on here. Sam Bett and David Boyd did a wonderful job translating it. I'm very happy for everyone involved, and yeah, this is my favorite Japanese author. I'm so glad she's here. To return to Anton He and his translation, the other book that he translated that made it to this list is Love in the Big City by Sang-Yong Park. Love in the Big City is a wonderful book. I did a video review of it you can go watch, and the reason that this is such a great book to be on this list is that it's very explicitly queer. when we talk about diversity in literary prizes, we don't always mean diversity of nationality, although this is a very diverse list in terms of nationality and language. But beyond that, there's also diversity of class, diversity of personal experiences, and diversity of sexuality and gender. And the fact that Love in the Big City is on here as a explicitly queer, gay Korean novel is just wonderful. In fact, because it's a very literary novel, because it's so explicitly gay, because it's from a publisher, Tilted Axis Press, who have such a wonderful reputation, and because Anton is a debut translator for this prize, if that's the right way to phrase it, I feel like Love in the Big City has a really good shot of winning this prize. But we'll see. I'm terrible at predicting winners. And it's really not important. What I'm trying to do here is just celebrate these longlisters. And I'm stumbling over my words. I have so much emotion in me right now. I just can't talk enough about how wonderful Anton's translations are, and the fact that Love in the Big City made this list is so cool as a piece of queer Korean fiction. Oh, representation. Oh, diversity. Oh, you love to see it. Now, I just mentioned Tilted Axis Press, and they actually made this list 3 times. When you look at this list, at a cursory glance, it really feels like it's pretty much dominated by 2 publishers, Tilted Axis Press and Fitzcarraldo Editions. Now, that's not surprising. When I first got into literature and translation, those were the 2 publishers that I turned to. The first few translated books I ever read and reviewed and talked about and got really passionate about were all published by Tilted Axis Press and Fitzcarraldo Editions. So this is unsurprising, but it's particularly cool that Tilted Axis made this list 3 times, because one of those books is Happy Stories Mostly. This is a review copy. The final copy is prettier, obviously. I could cry talking about this, to be honest. I could literally burst into tears right here. Norman deserves everything. He deserves all of the success and the money and the support that life could throw at anyone. Norman Erickson Pasaribu is an Indonesian writer. He is a very, very talented poet and author. He's an incredible person who faces so much adversity as a gay writer in Indonesia. His poetry collection, Sergius Seeks Bacchus, I reviewed years ago when it came out, and it was an incredibly moving collection of queer poetry. And now we have a short story collection from him, Happy Stories Mostly, translated by Tiffany Zhao and published by Tilted Axis Press. Now, Tiffany is also a wonderful author and a wonderful translator, and so this is just remarkable and wonderful. We have another short story collection on this list. We have Norman getting the recognition that he so deserves, and Tiffany, as a remarkable translator and writer in her own regard, also getting a lot of recognition on this prize. This whole thing, this thing here, Happy Stories Mostly, this is wonderful. This book came out at the very end of 2021, like the middle of December. I was very busy and I did not have time to do a review of it. I regret that now, but please, 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 please show Norman and Tiffany and Tilted Axis your support by going out and buying this collection of stories if you can. Happy Stories Mostly is wonderful. Norman is wonderful. This is so great. This is really so great, the fact that he's on this list. Just to mention quickly, the 3rd Tilted Axis book that's on this list is Tomb of Sand. Now, Tomb of Sand I have not read. It's really big. Judging from how big it looks compared to the other books, it's probably like 1,000 pages. I haven't read it. Tilted Axis didn't send us a review copy, and I don't know if I would have gotten to it anyway, because I find large books very difficult, and that point will resurface again in a second. But apparently, this is the first ever Hindi novel to make the International Booker list. And I found that really surprising. If that is true, I just heard it on Twitter, but if it is the first Hindi book, I'm really surprised by that. I should say it's written by Geetanjali Shree, and again, I don't know her as an author. I am completely in the dark when it comes to her, and I mentioned a few times in videos in the past that I've been reading a lot of Indian literature recently, especially short stories, and I've been really, really enjoying them, but this is a big tome, and I don't know when I'll get to it. I really should. I love Indian literature more and more the more and more that I read. This is really cool to see a Hindi novel. Again, great diversity here. But I do not know her, I do not know this book, so I can't comment. I'm just happy that it's here for the diversity and the fact that Tilted Axis managed to get 3 books on this list. I've also talked 100 times about the fact that one of my favorite indie publishers is Charco Press. Charco Press put out books in translation from Latin American authors, and I'm thrilled to see that they made the Longlist. But they made the Longlist with a book that I didn't really expect, a book that I read last year but didn't do a review of. I added it to a few articles and listicles on our website, but I didn't do a video review. And that book is Elena Knows by Claudia Pinheiro and translated by Frances Riddle. Now, Frances is really cool. I got to talk to her in an interview via Zoom a few months ago, and she's great, and it's a really, really good book. It's just not the one from Charco that I expected to be on this list, but I think that's because the one I expected was Brickmakers by Selva Almada, because she's my favorite Argentinian author, and if anything published by Charco should be on this list, it should be a Selva Almada novel, but that's just my bias. I just love her. I got to interview her recently. No, Elena Knows is a wonderful little novel. It's brilliant. If you haven't read it, it tells the story of a mother who, across a single day, is journeying from one end of Buenos Aires to the other. And all the while, she is reliving the story of her daughter's life and death and the relationship between the two of them. It's a very interesting novel. And other than the memories and flashbacks, it takes place over a few hours. What makes the book interesting, as the title suggests, is that Elena, the mother, believes that she knows what really caused the death of her daughter. Elena Knows. It's a really good book, and I'm happy to see it on here. I'm always happy to see Charco end up on a list like this because they publish some of the best Latin American fiction that exists right now. Speaking of Latin American fiction, Paradise made this list. This is a brand new book in translation by Fernanda Melchor and translated by Sophie Hughes, and they brought us Hurricane Season about 2 years ago, and I loved Hurricane Season. That was a wonderful, wonderful book. But this is a brand new book. It came out this month at the time of recording, and I haven't gotten to it yet. I am planning on doing a formal review of it on this channel, but it just came out, and I haven't gotten to it yet. But Hurricane Season was incredible, and I'm so happy that this made the list. Fernanda Melchor is a powerful Mexican writer, and Hurricane Season really shook me. I still think about it all of the time. And I've heard that Paradise is quite similar in terms of its themes and tone, and I'm happy to have more of that. Also, this is one of several Fitzcarraldo editions that made this list. Another Fitzcarraldo book that made this list is A New Name by John Fosse, if that's how it's pronounced. And I have never read his books. They've published quite a few of his books, I believe, and I've never touched them. So this is one I just can't comment on. I've not had any interest in reading his books, so I'm not going to spend any time on it. But the other Fitzcarraldo book that made this list is The Books of Jacob by Olga Tokarczuk. Now, Olga Tokarczuk is one of my favorite authors. I don't think I mention that very often, and that's mostly because I haven't read The Books of Jacob yet. Her previous novel to be published by Fitzcarraldo, I think, won the International Booker in 2018. I think I'm right. Flights is one of my favorite books. Period. Absolutely. One of my favorites. I love Flights. I also adore Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. She's an incredible author. She won the Nobel Prize in Literature, and she deserved to. I believe The Books of Jacob is... Yes, it is. It's translated by Jennifer Croft. Yeah, it's translated by Jennifer Croft. Jennifer Croft is also wonderful. I've watched her succeed and grow more and more as an author and a translator, and she is a genius when it comes to languages, linguistics, and translation. The reason I haven't read The Books of Jacob yet, though, is because it's 1,200 pages long, I believe, and I've seen a few people via Twitter and Instagram mention that it really feels like it's about 500 pages. Like, it just keeps going. The momentum does not stop, and I'm thrilled about that. It's also very clever literary historical fiction, and I'm all in. It sounds wonderful. It really sounds like my perfect book. But I read a lot of books. I struggle with long books. I talk about this all the time. Why couldn't it have been 500 pages? Why does it have to be 1,200? But I feel like I just can't get away from The Books of Jacob at this point. I have to read it. It made this list. It might win. I have to read it. Now all that's left is to go over a few books that I didn't know about at all. Just a handful of the books on this list I am just not familiar with. One of them is After the Sun by Jonas Eicher. Now this is published by Lolly, and Lolly published The Employees, which I mentioned earlier. The Employees by Olga Raven, another Danish novel. That became one of my favorite reads of last year, and I only learned about it because of the International Booker. So this could be exactly that all over again. Another Danish novel that I didn't know about, also again published by Lolly Editions, and also making the long list for the International Booker. So this could just be a repeat of The Employees, which is great. I'm excited if that's the case. Then there's More Than I Love My Life. I don't know why I put that in air quotes. This is by David Grossman. I have never heard of him, I don't think, as a writer. I don't think I've ever come across him before, but apparently he's won the International Booker in the past for something else. But like, he's an author who just total blind spot, no idea, don't know who he is. Sorry, can't comment. I'll have to do some research and see if I want to read this book and his other books too. I'm going to butcher this name, and I really don't like butchering names because I take language and translation, etc. very seriously, but I haven't looked it up, and anyway. The Book of Mother by Walain Huisman. Oh god. I don't know anything about this book. I am just going to let you do some research, or tell me if you've read it in the comments, or if you're interested in reading it, but I don't know it. As is the case with Phenotypes by Paolo Scott. Now, this is published by And Other Stories, and I really like what they put out, although I do often find that I just randomly miss things that they put out for some reason, and I often just fall behind on what And Other Stories are publishing, which is the case here. I don't know this book. And that's it. There you go. 13 books. 13 wonderful books, with the exception of like 3 that I just don't know. But this is an amazing long list. I think I've made that clear by now. This is a wonderful list of wonderful books, such diversity, so many great authors, so many great translators. You've got queer books on this list. You've got some of my favorite authors ever finding a place on this list, either for the first time or again, rightly so. This is the best long list that the International Booker Prize has ever done. Thank you to the judges for showing so much diversity and so much just good taste. I'm very happy with this long list. I am thrilled to see what the short list looks like, and I also don't care because I'm just happy with this long list. This is everything. Norman, you deserve all the success in the world. Anton making this list twice. Oh, I could go on and on and on. I'm so happy for everyone. Well done. Subscribe for books.